Hey everyone, welcome to the program WRSA Radio. I'm your host, Grenadier One. As always, I hope you're all well and good and enduring the heat. It has been abysmal here in the South with really high humidity on top of the temps, which is a recipe for indoor activities, I tell you. I can't emphasize it enough, man. It has been a scorcher. If you must go outside for any kind of extended period of time, man, keep hydrated because being a heat casualty sucks. It's not good, let me tell you. So let's get on with the show this week. There have been some things that have happened this week on the topic of gun control, and honestly, not to make light of it or anything, but because something very serious happened to at least one individual out in Idaho who was, in my opinion, unlawfully arrested and is facing prosecution for hurty words that he said on Gab. This case will be one to watch, and I urge you to go over to Gab to get the details because unfortunately, I feel that, if I dive too much into this case on these platforms that I use, that it might result in my channel being targeted or worse. So I'm not going to mention much more than that. Suffice it to say that this is a serious situation, and it's a warning to all of us of how the government will use these red flag laws that are being put into place all over the country to target people who say things that some folks don't agree with. So go over to Gab, and you will see the information, you will read the details, and you will know what's going on, what I'm talking about. Now that brings us to some other things that have gone on this week, and I'll start with the bad news, if that wasn't bad enough. But the Senate and a brace of lying traitorous dogs who call themselves Republicans have approved the latest round of Second Amendment restrictions and infringements, which, as we all know, are immediately null and void, as the paper clearly says that they can't do that. Sorry about that, folks. Anyway, We've had our back stabbed once again, and these new. I just wonder how much room they have to get yet another knife into our back there. But these new restrictions were voted on so quickly that no one had time to actually read the bill. No one had time to have hearings on the bill, and no one had time to propose and vote on any amendments to the bill. And this was all according to Mike Lee, who said that before the actual Senate had the text of the bill that came out of committee, there were media outlets already reporting that they had the full text of the legislation. Now, folks, this is a disgrace. Honestly, it's criminal, if you ask me, that someone leaks these proposed amendments, these proposed laws and changes, and before anyone in the Senate actually gets the thing to vote on. And then the fact that they're only given an hour to actually read through what no doubt is many, many pages of legislation, information, you know how government speak is. And then they have to vote on it as it stands with no way, no process to make proposed changes. This was rammed through the process. And I find that very funny that, when the Republicans have control of the Senate, that way of doing things is just non-existent. Nothing moves that fast through the intestines of their chamber when the Republicans are in charge of it, which I find very telling, very, very telling. Now, this bill still has to go over to the House for approval, which could be the death of it, because they are going to want to cram so much more infringement into it that, perhaps those traitors in the Senate will kill it when it comes back to reconciliation, which, that is the process. If something's voted on in the House, it goes to the Senate, and, if it's voted on in the Senate, it goes back to the House. If they have to reconcile their two bills to get all of the, an agreed upon language that they put together. So, But there's a lot of ifs, ands, or buts in that, and so I don't want you to get your hopes up. And we know that whatever they spew forth will immediately be approved by Sleepy Joe's handlers and become law, and we'll just have to deal with it. Now, uh, I say all that to show my disgust with this whole thing because it's vomit inducing that our country is reduced to this. We've devolved into this situation where the people we have elected to supposedly represent us are in fact working to eliminate us. We are at war with our own government, and most people don't even seem to realize that. Now, the signs are all there for anyone who has eyes to see. One of the principles of war that we're always harping on around WRSA circles is logistics. And, the old saying is amateurs talk tactics and professionals talk logistics. Well, let me rattle off some things for you and see what you think about them. What are the classes of logistics? In military terms, there's 10 classes of supply. And one of those is food and water. One of those is fuel and lubricants. One of those is ammunition. And there's others, but those are the three really important groups that without them, armies tend to grind to a halt. And if you take notice and have been paying attention to events and things going on, it sure looks like someone is deliberately trying to degrade our food and water and our oil and ammunition supply. We have fuel prices through the roof. We have shortages of diesel and other products. We have shortages and rising prices in food and what looks to be a concerted effort to destroy food production facilities. How many food plants and manufacturing plants and distribution places can catch on fire? That seems very coincidental to me, but combine that with the fuel situation, they're really degrading the ability of companies to transport and deliver food. We have large portions of the country under drought conditions. And water is beginning to run short in those areas. You just look at Lake Mead for our friends out there in Vegas. It's so low that we've got mafia bodies in concrete coming up on the shoreline. The water's receded so much. They're solving old cold cases by finding all these bodies and cars and other things that are just suddenly now exposed because the lake is so low. And just this week, we get word that the administration is testing the waters with shutting off the supply of ammunition that comes to the commercial market from the Lake City Arsenal plant. Now, this is a plant in Missouri that manufactures large portions of 5.56 ammo for the military, huge portions of their military contract. And it's technically owned by the government, the people, but it's usually ran by one of the other big ammo companies. I think Winchester has it now, but the administration is looking to shut off the portion of that stock that is routinely sold to the commercial market because they keep the plant running, making stuff, and they sell off the excess into the commercial market. And you can generally get that from different retailers or distributors, in their boxes, but it still comes from Lake City. And according to some sources that I saw, that represents something like 25 to 30% of the supply of 5.56 ammunition. Now, that's pretty significant, if you can do the math. Now, I suspect this is no doubt a nefarious thing, but that it's going to happen eventually regardless. This is something we will just have to kind of get around because I think they will use the story that they are retooling for the Army's new rifle that's coming down the pipe. It's in that odd 6.5 millimeter caliber, so it stands to reason that in the near future they're going to have to retool Lake City to supply that ammunition, and they'll use that as cover to kind of shut down and limit the supply that's coming out of there. We could see a situation where they try to limit production to just government contracts for that caliber and keep the sale of that ammo away from commercial dealers. So, I'm not sure they can make that actually happen, but I suspect if things kind of go long, that that'll be kind of the next iteration of it. That's where they're going to eventually go. So that's going to be something that we just have to kind of come to grips with and come to terms with. But as it stands, I don't think things are going to go so long. I think it's clear to see that our logistics are under attack, and we're on the brink of full subjugation here, in my opinion. We've spoken before about how the administration has been attacking the auto industry to try and reduce and eliminate personal car ownership because they want you forced to use public, which means government-controlled transportation. Well, Sleepy Joe even admitted to that this week. He wants to take millions of cars off the road. It's just a relentless assault on not just our freedoms. This is an assault on our existence. And these people want us to die if we refuse to submit and knuckle under to their demands. And their rainbow world order will see us face down with our cheeks spread, or they will see us in a ditch and consigned to the dustbin of history, as the progressive professors might say. Well, I will not comply with that. I aim to misbehave, as they say, and I believe that you all intend to do that as well. So, all is not lost, though, and we have these bright spots in the darkness, and what we have to decide for ourselves is if these bright spots are real, legitimate cause for hope, or are they just false bits of candy that lead us into a witch's pot? We got what appears to be good news today from the SCOTUS, striking down the overly restrictive and arbitrary concealed carry permitting system in the state of New York. Now, the process that they had in place was that to obtain a permit to exercise your supposedly God-given rights to bear arms, you had to explain why you needed to be permitted to do so. I don't know why it took so long to justify or debate over this and come to a conclusion that if you have to ask for permission, it's not a right. But at any rate, it was not sufficient to explain that, if you worked late at night and you lived in a bad area, you would be, that wasn't enough. You would be denied the permit if that's all you could put forth as your reason for needing to be able to carry. But we know factually that, for example, if you were famous or if you worked in specific high-profile fields like being a lawyer or maybe being a diamond merchant, that you could easily obtain a permit. But if you were a lowly peasant that worked the night shift at a diner and you had to ride the subway to get home, well, you were shit out of luck. You weren't getting that permit. You were not going to be allowed to protect yourself and defend yourself. You had to depend on the stalwart veterans of the NYPD to protect you. And that's not even getting into the fact that the city of New York is not the rest of the state. Why should someone who lives upstate be subject to the same restrictions as the denizens of the wretched hive of scum and villainy that is the 5 boroughs? Now, there's no real way to guess the number of people who were assaulted and raped and murdered over the decades as a result of this gross infringement on the people of New York, but today the SCOTUS bitch-slapped the state and told them that their law is unconstitutional and is therefore gone. It's null and void. Now, there's no word yet on the other states that have similar laws on the books, like California, and I want to say Illinois has a similar requirement, but there are a few other states out there that have subjected their citizens to this. But logic would tell you that this ruling would also slap those down and force changes to those schemes of infringement. But the problem is we no longer live in a world of logic. We already have communists calling for the states to simply ignore the ruling and and for the even the abolishment of the Supreme Court. Now, if they lose their shit over this ruling, just wait till later when the ruling overturning Roe comes out. In fact, that's what we're going to close with this week, is a warning to all my listeners and all the readers of WRSA. That ruling is coming within the next few days, probably before the next episode of the show. I would expect there to be violence as a result of that. We have a group called Jane's Revenge that is calling for disruptions and demonstrations and rioting if that ruling comes out overturning Roe v. Wade. And these people have already acted. They've already damaged some, right to life places, clinics, and whatnot over multiple states. They've been calling for this since that leak a number of weeks back, which appeared to show that, that's exactly what's going to happen. So you need to be on high alert and really, really monitor this situation. I would urge you to, spin up all your channels of information and really keep as close to those sources as you can. But not only that, but share the information. Share what you learn with us over on Gab so that we can spread that around and, as soon as we can, as soon as possible, to help everyone else out as well. We have to keep aware of these things that are going on so that we can keep each other safe. This is an especially volatile time, and we must expect that people will be out to harm us. And not only us, but the people that we know and love. And we have to watch each other's backs and stand with each other, because we're all that we have, and the whole damn world is against us. Now, that's all I got time for this week, folks. Like and subscribe. Come see us over on Gab and the Mothership, and I'll see you on the beach.